Yes, guys, I'm Sai. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, a Monday night show for the public. What is going on? The world is a fun place. That's all I can say. So normally we do a Patreon members only show on Monday. You should get involved in that because they're a lot of fun. We talk about all sorts of wild shit, whether it's football or fucking all the other stuff which will get you cancelled. We'd have a little chat about it. But tonight we're going a bit unscripted. Reese is having a little week off. So Mr. Robert Boyle has joined me, the Fleurs under-8 coach himself. How are you, buddy? You all right?
I'm wicked, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very good. Just
your beard's looking nice and white.
Oh, mate, it gets whiter by the day.
Yeah, I like it, though. I dig it. I'm not a fan of it, in fairness. I like it.
It's like I just embracing the grey, mate. The good thing is, see, I think I feel different about my grey beard and my grey head, which you can't see as much in this light, but it's quite grey. Is the thing I think which helps me in terms of like just again not really bothering me is my missus likes it. So it's like if that kind of eases the pain of looking older. So there we go. But
I'm still yet to get any greys yet, not to have a flower.
There we go. Look at that. Guys has sent a super chat in straight away, and he says something dodgy about Chelsea and the Saudi thing. Right. Well, there we go. That's the subject to start, I think, mate. So basically, to sort of paraphrase the story, it's kind of come out today and last day or so, but mainly today, that the Newcastle owners, PFI, which is basically the Saudi royal family, have invested in Clear Lake Capital, which is Chelsea's, what's the word I'm looking for? The majority shareholder of Chelsea. So, all right, they can do that. They can invest. I'm sure they invest in all sorts of different companies around the world, and it's what people do, and they invest in companies. So that's fine. But then you see, pretty much, Chelsea spent 600 million in between January and the summer since they had the takeover, and people couldn't work out what the plan was. They just signed in everyone possible, and even now they're still doing it. But the thing which is kind of a bit dodgy about it is that this company's invested in it, and then Chelsea have to have a bit of a fire sale this summer otherwise they're going to have all sorts of problems with financial fair play. They got 30 players and whatever, and then suddenly all these players who, they're asking Man United for 80 million for Mason Mount with a year left on his contract. And it's that's probably not realistic, is it? But then it makes sense because suddenly all the players they want to get rid of are going to go to Saudi Arabia, which takes all the pressure off. So I think Hakim Ziyech has already been linked with them.
Kante's gone.
Koulibaly is due to go soon as well for 20 million or something. He's 32 and has been shit for last season, but they're going to get 20 odd million. And it's I saw some tweets today saying people saying it's pretty much a get out of jail free card for them, because they were in trouble and they were going to have to literally sell pretty much anyone who had a good bid for to come in line with everything. They had too many players. They had 30, 40 players, and Poch is going to want to sign players as well. They're still linked with every name under the sun. And it's it just makes it seem a bit of a farce. And then also, there's just something dodgy. It's not even a loophole, really. It seems dodgy. But last thing I'll say before I let you speak, mate.
Yeah. No.
I did see a lot of people saying, with Chelsea fans defending it, is if you look at the players they are signing to that league generally, they're trying to get the biggest name Muslim players in the world, which Koulibaly and Ziyech and I'm not sure about Kante, but Benzema and these people, they do fall under that category. So I get it, but in the Chelsea specific case, no one else in the world is paying 20, 25 million for Koulibaly at the moment. I don't know how much Kante went for. And I'm trying to find the report or the tweet it was. I'm sure someone said that effectively the people with the money in the Saudi league, they buy in players and then they allocate it to different clubs. I don't know how I don't know how true that is. I can't really comment on that, but it does sound a bit like. But what do you think of the Chelsea thing, mate? They've invested in that majority shareholder company, and
surely it's money laundering, is it not? I'm no, lawyer expert or anything like that by any means, but sure, doesn't that not fall into that category to be taking money from one club to another place?
Money laundering is, I think, as far as I understand it, is more if you make illegal money and then you use like a company
What's
to make
legal
it, to
about
make
that?
it legal. Yeah, but the money to start with is coming from like a legal place, if you like, so it's for businesses and whatever. Whereas, so for my understanding, I think, is for money laundering, it's like, say I'm like a drug dealer and I've got like 2 million quid in cash and I've got to kind of put it, I can't just put it in my bank because then it looks suspect. So I've got to like kind of find a way to, so that's why you'll find people, criminals, if you like, will use like cash businesses like taxi ranks or fast food places
or Chelsea Football Club.
Laundrettes, Chelsea Football Club, yeah. It does feel a bit like, come on, like you got to be pretty blind to not think it's a bit suspect. But if there was something, you'd like to think if there was something proper against any rules, that FIFA would step in. But I saw some United fans saying, like, on social media, sort of saying, well, everyone's got a problem with state-owned football clubs now because Qatar are going to buy Man United, but they didn't have a problem when it was Man City or Chelsea, Newcastle or whoever. And then it's like, even this, people are talking about it, but there's no real like pushback from other clubs or anything like that. But I mean, obviously, it's only sort of come to light in the last couple of days. It's difficult, mate. Once you've got these like trillionaire owners who've got like a bottomless pit of money and money's no object, it's just kind of gets a bit murky, doesn't it? There's nothing you can really do to, if they stick within the rules, even if it's a bit disturbing or whatever, or you don't like it, I don't think there's much you can do. However, there is rules regarding like conflicts of interest and stuff within football. So like when what's his head bid for United, the owner of Nice, Jim Ratcliffe, he owns Nice in France.
That's
so
right.
They've got to like, they have to invest, check with that and check the rules around that. And then I think same with Qatar. Qatar had to show that, or the Qatari sheikh who's bidding for United had to show that he wasn't linked to the PSG side of the Qatar owners and stuff like that. Now, I'm sure the fund at the top is probably the same in that case. In my opinion, I have no proof of that. And then
of course it is.
Different people running the two clubs.
It doesn't take a genius to work out.
But then ultimately, I suppose, yeah. But then ultimately, if it's different chairman, different owners, different people, just effectively two different companies, but then they're owned by the same people at the top, is there a conflict of interest? I mean, I don't know. But then I say that, I don't know. And then I said to my mate the other day, like, say PSG sell Mbappe to United and FIFA say, right, have you paid that? And then it's coming out with the same fund of money, innit? So it's like, oh, yeah, we paid it, definitely. And it's like, oh, yeah, we paid them 250 million straight up, like, for,
it's coming from the same tap, just going in different bottles. That's all it is.
Yeah, so it's just money, mate, in football. It's all a bit murky, and I don't know how best to describe it, but it's just a bit, I find it a bit depressing, if anything. Like, it's just money, and more. I feel like as each year passes, we lose a bit from football in terms of how we see it and the emotional connection to it.
There's a question for you then. Obviously, very much hypothetical, and I have no doubt your answer might be different if it was a reality. But say, for example, Cardiff was like Newcastle, for argument's sake. We had these big boy owners come in.
I'd fucking love it, mate. I want Cardiff to be state-owned.
Yeah, and we were like that.
Yeah, give me a trillion. Mate, I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But it's like, but I think that goes for all football fans, doesn't it?
That's the problem, isn't it?
In the cold light of day, right? I would say 90% of football fans who love their clubs in the privacy of their own home would admit that they all want like those millionaire owners, you know? Like, so we all want a daddy, like a sugar daddy who's going to come into our club and enable us to push on. Whatever that may be, you're in Cardiff's case, you want to sign the best players available and then push on into the Premier League, play good football, watch good football. We all want that. And if we could do it without the money and just employ like a good manager who's going to do these things, we'd all love to do that. But the fact is, money has a massive impact on it. So if you use the Championship as an example, you can have certain teams like a Luton, say you've got a good manager in place, good structure, and they build season by season. But also, for every one of them, you've got a Burnley or a Southampton or a Leicester who are going to come down, got fucking hundreds of millions of pounds in parachute payments and what they've already earned in the Premier League and what they'll make from selling a couple of their big names. How can someone like Cardiff, for instance, you can't compete with that. And I know the first thing some people will say, well, you're going to sign Aaron Ramsey on a free. Well, yeah, maybe.
Judging by the game on Friday, granted I didn't watch the full game, but by all accounts, from what brief parts.
Well, mate, no, the problem is Wales did, the bit I saw was Wales were making the same mistakes they made in the World Cup. No legs in the midfield, and the midfielders are too far apart. And what was I talking about with Aaron Ramsey last week with Cardiff? If they're going to just sign Aaron Ramsey and stick him in a midfield with Joe Rolls and whoever's there now, he's going to look shit. We're going to get overrun because he hasn't got the legs. He's got the creativity and the technical ability if you can get him to full fitness. But you've got to put two young midfielders in there with him who can do the legs and do the work and hopefully have a bit about them with the technical side as well. But going back to the original point, the Premier League clubs come down. They got hundreds of millions in parachute payments. Then they sell their big name players. They still hold on to a few of the players who are probably Premier League players. They bring in a couple of championship, top championship players. And then 9 times out of 10, they go straight back up. And, bar a couple. And the ones that don't go straight back up, if they don't go up, if you don't go up before your parachute payments finish, which I think is 3 years or 2 years. If you don't go up in those 2 seasons with the parachute payments, you end up being stuck in the Championship because, and it's happened to many, Cardiff included, you've got to go up when you got the parachute payments because after that, the drop in the money you receive week to week, year to year, compared to when you're in the Premier League is massive. And it's very difficult to compete with people. So in answer to your original question, yeah, of course I would want a sugar daddy to come in and take over Cardiff. Do I want Cardiff to be state-owned? No. Would I complain if they were? No. Here's the thing, right? I don't want Cardiff to be state-owned, but not because I don't want Qatar or I don't want Saudi Arabia or whoever. All these different clubs, countries which are kind of buying football clubs. It's not them that I don't want. I wouldn't want the British government, royal family, to own Cardiff. I wouldn't want the Welsh government or whatever. It's not a Middle East thing, if you like, or it's just generally I would prefer countries and royal families to not own football clubs. But that ship sailed now.
That's gone, bro.
As a Cardiff fan, or as a fan of any club, so say United, I bet you if you polled 99% of United fans, right, and you said 3 months ago, do you want to be owned by Qatar? They would all say, no, I don't want to be state-owned. However, the Glazers effectively bought United with a loan for 600 million or whatever it was, then put that loan on the club, so they got their 600 million back, and the club was paying off that. Then they took out 1.5 billion, so they've already had their initial loan back, made 1.5 billion in investments. Or yes, they've spent money, but they haven't spent money. They've just used the club's money. So the Glazers have already made 1.5 billion in dividends, and now they're going to sell the club for 6 billion. It's like, how can that possibly be legal work? Like, and that has been closed. Like last week, they changed the rules, didn't they? That you can't do a leverage buyout so you can't buy a club with a loan. But like Jim Ratcliffe, that's why a lot of United fans have turned on him now, because he's using a loan, but he's putting it against Ineos, which is his company, which owns Nice. And then he's going to keep the Glazers in so they haven't got any power, but they're still getting paid. So United fans are like, fuck that. We want these cunts out. Yeah. So it's like, and then suddenly now, I would say the percentage of people in the United fan base who were against state ownership now has changed, because they know the only way they can compete on a financial level now, and you're talking the biggest football club in the world, arguably, certainly in the top 3, right? The only way they can financially compete with the likes of Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Man City, whoever, Bayern, the only way they can financially compete is by having state ownership. So if you look at that as from a purely outside thing, the only way that Manchester United can compete is to have state ownership. Then football's got a massive problem, because if one of the biggest clubs in the world can't do it, and I think what you'll see is United will get taken over by Qatar, and over the next few years they'll be back to where they were previously in terms of Champions League semi-finals, competing for the title, whatever. But then Liverpool now will have the same issue with FSG, where they're not as bad as the Glazers, but it's effectively the similar thing. They're taking out money. Yeah, they're signing players, but they're cheap and they're bargains, and they're not, they weren't in for Bellingham, for instance, who they'd already had talks with and stuff, and it changed to McAllister, who's 35 million, quality player, but it's a different level. And I think when Liverpool fans see United are under that Qatar ownership and they're suddenly signing, or they're in for the best players and they're competing in the Champions League and stuff like that, they will then start asking more. And they already question the ownership, in fairness to them. As much as I dislike Liverpool, the majority of their fan base is quite intelligent when it comes to things like this. And it's like, I think the Chelsea thing is dodgy as fuck. I think ultimately all fans would prefer their club to be not owned by like a state.
I think
you need money, mate, to compete. This is the fact. So
yeah, I just wonder how many
anyone. Sorry, mate.
Last thing
I was going to say is anybody who says that they wouldn't want their club to be owned by someone who is like a multi-billionaire is lying. Anyone. And if that means state ownership or whoever, they're lying, mate, because everyone wants it, because everybody wants their club to compete. It's just unfortunate. Everybody wants it for their club, but no one wants it either. Do you see what I mean? We're all hypocrites.
Yeah, pretty out there. If anyone who's watching or whatever would disagree, then speak now, forever hold your peace.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Matthew just said that Morrell's been given a red card in the Wales game. Marvellous. Absolutely marvellous. But such is life. I think I do agree, though. Like Gavin says, like Jude Bellingham was so much, you can get 3 players for that. I agree with that. And I'm not saying that Liverpool were wrong to pull out of that deal. And what I'm saying is that we all want our club to compete. And at the moment, last season for Liverpool can be written off as like the aging squad. We need a bit of investment, etc. It's a one-off. But what happens if, for instance, let's dream scenario, right? In terms of not dream, but like hypothetical, right? say United get Qatar and Mbappe or some crazy shit, which because they'll want to make a statement when they come in, so they'll sign whoever, plus the players that Ten Hag actually wants. Chelsea, we've already discussed, have got this investment from Newcastle's owner to get around their financial fair play, which means whoever Poch wants, they will get. Looks, I think they'll madly, crazily enough, I think Chelsea will end up getting Casado, who they don't really need, but they will end up getting him, and he's a quality footballer. So Chelsea will compete because they've got the money and the manager and everything in place to now push on, providing that the American guy stays out of it. Because I do feel like one day he's going to turn up at halftime and go, right, you're sacked, Poch. Right then, boys, what's happening? You're going to play your goalie. You're going up front. But the Chelsea over the net. But what I think is a relative in this hypothetical, it's a relatively safe bet to assume that Chelsea, with the back-in and the manager they've got, will be competing at least in the sort of top three there or thereabouts. Then if United get Qatari ownership, they will compete. And remember, with the Qatari ownership, they get rid of the debt. So they haven't got that holding them back. So they will be in that sort of top three competing. Man City, well, they're going to be there because they got the players already and they've got a bottomless pit of money. Then you've got Newcastle, who are in the top four already and have got a bottomless, literally, out of all of them, Newcastle are probably the richest in terms of how much money the owners have got access to. Obviously, there's certain rules with what you can spend and that. But, so they're going to be there. So that's 4 clubs straight away. Then you've got Liverpool have made a good signing, McAllister. They make a couple more good signings. From a footballing point of view, you'd expect them to be there. They've got a good manager. And if they get the right players, they should be competing. But can Liverpool, for instance, compete financially with those 4 that I just mentioned? If we're being realistic, they can't. So say X player comes up in a couple of years, right? I don't know, player X, right? And he's 19, 20, banged in the goals, loads of assists. He is the guy, right? All those 4 clubs will be in for him. If Newcastle is still in the Champions League, they'll be in for him. United will be in for him with Qatar. Man City will be in for him. Chelsea will be in for him. Madrid will be in for him. Barcelona will be in for him. Liverpool financially will not be able to compete with that. Not just Liverpool, by the way. I'm just using Liverpool as an example. They won't be able to financially compete. So then you have a problem where, at the moment, fans are already questioning the FSG owners a little bit. Not quite as intensely as the Glazer out thing, but it's there. There's a bit of a murmuring going on. And we haven't even talked about, the habitual underachievers like Spurs. But how are Brighton supposed to kick on? There's an example for you, mate. So take Liverpool. Liverpool obviously have got a lot of history and the size of the club is big. Let's look at Brighton, Brentford. Who else was up there towards the end of the season?
Fulham.
So these clubs, right, from a footballing point of view, right, now, they should be looking to keep their best players and kick on to try and break into the top 6 regularly. That's years gone by. That's what would have happened.
Yeah.
But now, in order for them to strengthen their squads, they have to sell their best players to the teams above them. So they have to sell Casado, McAllister to Liverpool. They have to sell Casado to Chelsea. And bear in mind, they finished above Liverpool. They beat United. They beat City, whoever. But they get Villa as well. These clubs, they're going to sell their best players to the teams who are financially the biggest. And they've got to start again. And look, Brighton have been phenomenal at just selling their best players and just finding these players who just slot in and almost get them even better. I just think eventually that's going to not work, innit? Against teams who can just sign a player. They could spend 200 million in the summer, and then in January they're like, "Oh, that didn't work. Let's go and spend 600 million."
Yes,
you can't, and that's where it becomes a bit of a farce. And I'm talking from a sporting competition point of view.
I've always wondered, right? A great example with Brighton with their recruitment process. Why don't like these big clubs or whatever go after and sign the staff.
Oh, I can answer this. Go on, you finish your point. I can answer it though. Go on.
No, I just wondered. That's all. Why don't they go get straight to the, get it from the horse's mouth, as it were?
Yeah. So here's a really good example of like the kind of bad ownership in these clubs, particularly the bigger clubs in the Premier League. So Solskjaer and his scouts went to the Glazers and Ed Woodward and said they wanted to sign Haaland and Caicedo. I think at the time they could have got Haaland for about 3 million, and they could have got Caicedo for about, I think it was about the same, maybe less. Because the scouts had said that they fancied him. Solskjaer had looked at him and he knew Haaland. The players were interested in coming, and the Glazers and Ed Woodward said no, because we're going to go and sign, I can't remember who it was, but it was someone like Falcao or
Lukaku, maybe.
Di Maria, Lukaku, and all these players who failed and have gone since. And it's like, I talked about it a little bit last week in terms of, as managers, like, there's no time now. You have to almost earn the right to be able to, at the top end, you have to earn the right. You almost have to win trophies to then be able to go, right, I want to build and sign like an unknown player from South America or wherever, from Scandinavia, and say, right, he's 18, we're going to give him a few years, but in 5 years' time, he's going to be, the next big thing. But you have to earn that right to sign those players, because first of all, you've got to get the players for now who cost more to try and compete and get that. Because otherwise, you get sacked after you lose X amount of games. And the pressure on managers is ridiculous, mate. No manager anywhere from the Premier League down to the Championship, if they lose 5 on the bounce, is probably going to get sacked. Matthew Angel says, membership renewed. Nice one, Matthew. Thank you very much, mate. Always good to have members coming back or new members. Good to have you back, buddy.
Just got to get Josh signed now, Matt.
It's,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, like, mate, members are what keeps the channel going and keeps the lights on, as it were. But it's difficult, mate, because you do need money in football to keep clubs going, and there's nothing worse than seeing these big sort of traditional clubs with history folding, like Bury. I know Bury are making a bit of a comeback, but like over the last few years, there's been clubs folding, and you look at like Wigan now, like they're in so much trouble. So you do need these people to invest in football, but it's just frustrating that it's almost taking the sporting competition side out of things. Because I look at that Premier League, let me bring it up, right? But the Premier League table from last year was really interesting because, like, Brighton, for me, you look at the way they played and the way they competed throughout the season, right? Like, they really should be looking to kick on now. Like, there's no way they should have been selling, like, Caicedo and McAllister and a few others or whatever where they sell. Like, really, they should have been looking to keep those players and build around them, but they can't, because then they can't strengthen their squad, and it's like a vicious circle, and I think it spoils the football side of things, because you got Man City won the treble, right? Congratulations, good for them, wicked, but they've also, over the last 5 or 6 years, Pep has bought like a new centre back every year.
Yeah,
it's like 50 million on.
And another one is linked as well.
Like Laporte. No, he's not good now. I'm going to sign someone else. But started with Lescott, and like just a new one every year. Not everyone is able to do that. Just bang out like 50 to 70 million on a striker, and it's like no. And like Gavin says, McAllister was going all day, to be honest, and I do get that. But my point isn't that McAllister might want to leave or whatever. But my point is the way the league table was. So you had top 4 of City, Arsenal, United, Newcastle, Liverpool. Okay, so you take them out of it. After that, it's Brighton, Villa, Tottenham, Brentford, Fulham. They should all be looking to really right. We got a good Brighton finished 6th. Only a couple of points, few points behind the Champions League spaces. So they should be looking at it like, from a sporting point of view, how can we get in the Champions League spots next year? Or how can we challenge for that? How can we get better next year? Well, I would suggest not having to get rid of McAllister and Caicedo would be a good start.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think we'd be better off just saying, sound, piss off to the Super League, you all do your own thing, off you go, we'll do our own thing. And that's just not the Premiership with the league clubs or whatever. But around Europe, just say, off you fudge, do your own thing, we'll go about our business.
Well, there's two sides to that, isn't there? Like, from the football sporting side of it, it is, great. It would make everything more competitive. But from a financial side of it, the Premier League wouldn't get the money that it would get.
Yeah, because Sky Sports would chase it.
Well, everything would. Sponsors, everyone, they're going to follow United, Liverpool, City, whoever goes, right? But here's the more worrying thing for me, right, is that Saudi Arabian league, mate. At the moment, they're signing like Benzema and Ronaldo and all these players to their league. They got like trillions and trillions of pounds, dollars, whatever. Like, they got so much money. They're signing these players. And if you noticed, started with Ronaldo, Benzema, like 37, 36, whatever. But now you've got like Ruben Neves from Wolves. He could have gone to Liverpool, United, Madrid. Like, he's good enough and young enough. He's in the prime of his career. And he's going. Like, you look at Oscar, who's playing in China for the last couple of years. Like, good for them. They're getting the bag and wicked. But like, they're not exactly like they weren't exactly like struggling to pay their rent, playing in Europe or whatever. And look, there is a bit of kind of like almost snobbery about it, right? Because we're all like, the Champions League, Europe, the Championship, Premier League. It's all, that's where the best. That's where you have to go to compete and be the best. But like, maybe in 10, 15 years, the Saudi League will be right up there with the Premier League and the Champions League and the rest of it. And that's good. I think Saudi building their league is good. Buying players from Chelsea, who I don't believe for a second they necessarily would be their first choice, because they've invested in that company and they know that the problems, which are clear for everyone to see in the next few months, that's a problem. And I just, look, it is what it is. Like, you look at David De Gea, right? He's been on 375 grand a week at United for the last few years, which is outrageous. But the reason he got it is because he was the only player who was performing. He was getting player of the year every year, and he was going to go back to Spain, to Atletico. So they had to pay him bucks to stay. So then he had negotiated to have his wages reduced to like 200 grand, well, bless him, a year next year and stay. But then Saudi Arabia have come in and said, we'll pay you fucking 400 grand a year. So,
mate,
do you know what I mean? It's brutal, mate, isn't it? Do me a favor, mate. I've just got a phone call which I have to answer. Oh no, it's gone. It's fine. Go on. It's fine. Go on, carry on. No, what were you going to say, mate?
I don't know. What was I going to say?
Just in answer to what I just said, I guess, about like, I'm all up for Saudi Arabia making their league. I would love it if that Saudi league is up there in a few years alongside La Liga, the Premier League, etc. Yeah. What I have an issue with is that I'm not sure it's like that Chelsea thing is dodgy as hell to me. Like, I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think as well. How many years do we give it before there's a combined tournament during end of season or as going alongside the European competitions, where it's Saudi Arabian teams competing against European teams in a tournament of some sorts, of a Champions League module, not a Super League. Maybe that might be a few years down the line, But I would not be surprised in the slightest if there's a tournament created, or you may even start as a friendly tournament, and it'll snowball where the Saudi teams are playing European teams on a yearly basis, and it'll snowball because of all these elite money-grabbing turds that's gone over there, and it'll become a thing, and it'll be a proper tournament. I guarantee that'll be a thing in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think also, like, the Super League thing, that'll rear its head again very shortly.
Yeah.
And I think that the way they'll get around it is they will make it out a bit effectively to be basically an additional sort of Champions League, and they'll do it at times where it doesn't interfere with, the domestic seasons and blah blah blah. But it's all the same bullshit, mate, isn't it? Like, it's all the same lies and
same shit, different smell.
Yeah, and the people who suffer will be the fans. Have to buy more subscriptions, have to pay more to go and see teams, and this is the issue: is that it's always the football fans who suffer. So obviously, I said about like the difficulties that managers have in terms of, you lose 5 games on the bounce and you're done pretty much wherever you are. Like, the pressure's unreal. Someone who did a good job this year was Gary O'Neill.
Oh yeah.
Like, he kept them up, but he not only kept them up, he got them pushed right up the table to the point where they were never even in the relegation battle. Like, after a certain point, they finished 15th comfortably. They did lose 4 of the last 5 games, which kind of, I suppose that backs up my point, doesn't it? Like, he did a tremendous job, kept them up. They weren't in the relegation battle come the business end of the season, but he lost 4 of the last 5 games and he's been sacked. And outrageous decision for me, but they straight away they've appointed Andoni Iraola as their new head coach. He signed a 2-year deal because he had just finished with Rayo Vallecano in Spain. His contract had expired. To me, like, they finished 11th in the Spanish top flight last year. I don't think that's particularly, like, is that much better than what Gary O'Neill did, really? Or is it just because he's got a exotic name and like, Gary O'Neill did an amazing job, mate, and I thought he should have been in the conversation, not winning it, but he should have been in the conversation for manager of the year with De Zerbi from Brighton and a few others. But it's not fashionable enough, mate. But Gary O'Neill did a tremendous job, and I think it's honestly the fact that he has been sacked. Everybody in football should be looking at that thinking, fuck's sake, like, what are we doing here? I really think it's that bad. I think it's that outrageous that he's been sacked.
But you know the best thing about that? Sorry to jump in on you. There was a comment by the owner or whatever he is for Bournemouth, and he went, I know he'll be successful in his next job, or something along those lines. And I was thinking, if you know he's going to be successful, fucking give him a full pre-season. Give him a full season in charge, a pre-season, go into a full season. Like, I just don't get it, but I don't.
Mate, it's outrageous. And you know what? Like, all these people, like the LMA Managers Association and the people from the PFA and the Premier League, banging on about like managers not get British players not getting a chance as managers and blah blah blah. But you know why those statistics are so bad, right? Is because the likes of Lampard and Gerrard, now they're going to take over from what like Pullis and Sam Allardyce and all these other guys used to be, where you just get the same British managers going around. They fail, they go to another club. They fail there, they go to another club, and then you have a young managers who do well. Like, look at Carl Robinson, mate. Was at MK Dons for fucking years, killing it. Did he ever get a chance at a championship club or a lower Premier League club or anything like that? Probably wouldn't even get a fucking interview. Yeah, it will have. And this is what's going to happen. You look at Lampard already. Chelsea, shit. Everton, worse. Went back to Chelsea, even worse. Guarantee you, by Christmas, he'll have another job in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Guarantee it. How is that possible? Yet Gary O'Neill has just kept Bournemouth up and gets sacked. And then they'll moan to people about how, oh, no British managers, they don't get a chance. Well, that's because you keep sacking the good ones for a fashionable name and you keep employing the shit ones. So, of course, your statistics are slanted. Idiots.
And Carl Robinson, wasn't he?
I just used him as an example, but you know.
Oh no, but no,
he did well for a long period.
That. And he was the dodgy. I fucking can't stand him. Sam Allardyce's bitch when he took over temporary at Leeds, when he an assistant or something like that for Fat Sam at Leeds briefly.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I'm sure he was, mate. I'm sure he was part of the coaching staff of Robbie Keane's Fat Sam and Carl Robinson, which is a weird combination. But I'm sure he was part of his assistant or backup or some rubbish like that. He was, but I bet he didn't get a sniff from doing anything really. But yeah,
mate, it's outrageous that Gary O'Neill got sacked. And talking about the same managers getting the same jobs and going round and round, Brendan Rodgers is the new Celtic manager. Look, in one way, I think it's not a bad appointment.
No.
But same managers get the jobs all the time. And it's just a different group of managers now because the other managers have kind of aged out, like your Tony Pulis's and the rest of them. Although they still get linked with championship jobs. Mick McCarthy's and your Tony Pulis and Sam Allardyce. And they're all still going to get linked with these jobs. And this is the problem, is like clubs will go after the name instead of the performance. So there's managers out there, British managers out there, young ones, who have done well, but maybe they've done well at a lower league because they've had to go into a lower league to bloody get a chance at a job. But Gary O'Neill hasn't done that. Gary O'Neill has taken over a club in free fall in the first half of the season, steadied the ship, kept them up in the Premier League. But that's not good enough. So,
what hope does that give?
What more can he do? Do you know what I mean? Were they expecting him to qualify for Europe, finish in the top 10? What was their aim?
Yeah.
How could he have kept his job? What could he have done? Was he supposed to get in the Champions League spots? I mean, they were everyone's favourite. When he took over, pretty much everyone was saying, no, they're already down. And they weren't even in the discussion at the end of the season. So, mate, outrageous. Really bugged me. Really, really bugged me.
You think?
I think also it's because he's an ex-Cardiff loanee, and I liked him.
And he was a good boy as well.
He was awesome at Cardiff. But it's just outrageous, mate, I gotta say. But talking to the money and people being able to compete, Madrid, they want Mbappe, but PSG have said no, you can only have him for 200 million, but to everyone else he's 150. They went to Harry Kane, and Tottenham said we want 100 and whatever million, and they've gone fucking hell. I'm not paying 100 million for someone with a year left on their contract. In both cases, so they've signed
Joselu,
who used to play for Stoke, from Espanyol. He's 33-year-old striker. He's effectively he is pretty much a journeyman, but.
Yeah,
I'm sure with the players they've got behind him and around him, that he'll do really well, mate. He'll score. He's probably not bought to score goals. He's bought to link up the play, isn't he? When you got Vinicius Jr. and Bellingham and Modric.
He's a Spanish Giroud, mate.
Yeah, he'll do the donkey work, won't he?
Yeah, he's. I think he's only played he's made 2 or 3 caps for Spain, and he scored literally within a few minutes of coming on when Spain played. I can't think it was the other day when I was watching. And he come on and just literally scored straight away, pretty much. But that is literally what he is. He's a big boy, good in the air, and he is basically going to be a Spanish Giroud. That's effectively what he is.
But if that's what Madrid have got to do, surely that should in itself should be setting off alarm bells to the rest of football. Jesus, Madrid need a striker. Benzema's left, and they've signed a journeyman. probably because they've spent a big chunk on Jude Bellingham, although they didn't spend anywhere near what the Premier League clubs were quoted, which is interesting. But that sets off alarm bells, mate, as well in terms of finances. Because if Madrid can't sign Harry Kane or Osimhen or all these like players, strikers, Mbappe, like these are the best strikers available in the world, and they're available. Madrid need a striker, and they're not going for him at the moment. They're signing someone, and it might be that they've picked him up cheap with the plan to go back in for one of those names I mentioned later in the window.
Yeah,
but they got a bit more leverage then because they could, if everyone knows you haven't got a striker, they're not going to budge on the price as much.
He will score. He will score for him, of course. He will get him a good few goals with, with, like say, with Rodrigo and Vinicius Junior and the like around him. Of course he will. But
you're talking Madrid as well, mate, renowned for signing the best players in the world.
Excuse me.
The best players in the world at their peak as well. So if they're not in for Mbappe, who's available, and and who was the other one I said? Mbappe, Kane, Osimhen, like three of the hottest strikers in Europe. Like they, if they're not in for them, like what hope has the rest of the clubs got now?
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting couple of years, mate.
Yeah, it's going to be mental, mate. The transfer window over the next couple of years is just going to be insanity. Really,
I'm just waiting to see who Newcastle start signing. Like, are they going to go full on FIFA career mode, or are they going to have a little dabble every now and again? Because they were linked with who's that Italian midfielder? I can't think where his name is. For Inter Milan.
Yeah,
Nico Barella, was bloody quality.
Yeah,
he'd be a statement signing if they sign him.
Yeah, I mean it's just mental, mate, and all these names get linked to all these players, and it's just Well, that's a bit depressing. I just saw second half just kicked off in the Wales game, and Ben Cabango, who I highly rate, has come on for Brennan Johnson. Looks like it's partially injury related, but also because we're down to 10 men. Brennan Johnson only just come back from injury as well.
Is it 0-0?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's have a look-see. So, is there anything else I wanted to discuss? Let me see. I think that was pretty much the main subjects. Or apart from anyone who ever tells me that Thomas Partey is on the same level as Casemiro can get stuffed forever, twice on Sundays. Looks like Arsenal might even be willing to sell him. So there you
before
go.
I forget, have you seen about Arsenal apparently linked with a 60 or 50 million bid for Kai Havertz from Chelsea?
It's a weird one, that, isn't it?
What the fudge is they doing with that?
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? But then, here's the thing, right, mate? This is how I look at it. Is, say you're Arsenal or United fan, right? And you've got both of you've got good managers who've done well for you so far. Now you've got to back them. So if they want Kai Havertz or Mason Mount or whoever, you've got to back them. And even if you don't see it as a fan, maybe even the people who the transfers at the club, maybe they don't see it as well. I think if your manager's shown enough that he's the real deal, you've got to trust his judgment. I think Kai Havertz is absolutely shite, and I think he's one of the worst Premier League hit signings in history. I think he's been absolutely disgraceful for Chelsea. But there's obviously a reason why Arteta wants him, whether it's because he thinks he'll fit in the system or he thinks he's a good utility forward to have off the bench. He can play wide, he can play through the middle, and he suits the style Arsenal play. I have no idea, mate. I don't see it myself. I think there's much better players that he could get for probably less. But if I'm an Arsenal fan or I'm the Arsenal board, if that's who he wants and the finances work, you've got to do it. You've got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, he's shown, like, Chelsea played him as a striker, I think, for quite a bit during the season, and doesn't score. So you play him as a attacking midfielder, which they got Odegaard to do that. So why would you pay 60 million pound for potentially a backup attacking midfielder?
Yeah, it's mental, mate. I really don't.
I don't understand that.
Don't understand the logic behind it. But
it might be all fat, no poo, mate. Do you know what I mean? It may just be rumours and.
Well, it does seem as if it's got some legs, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see what's what. But we'll wrap it up there, mate, because I got places to go, people to see now.
No drama.
Be a taxi driver for my kids and wife from like 3 different places around South Wales.
That sounds horrendous.
Just what I want to be doing at 9 o'clock at night on a Monday. But there we go. As always, mate, an absolute pleasure to chat.
Likewise.
And obviously, we'll speak to you soon, buddy. Please do sign up for Patreon, like Matthew Angel did earlier tonight. What a legend. And it really it helps the channel keep going, mate. All of you, please just price of a coffee per month, but it literally keeps the lights on for the channel, as it were. We'll be back on Wednesday for the Cardiff show, Championship show, and I'll see you then. Take it easy.
Nice one, guys.
Ta-da now.